Hey everyone, this is an interview we did with Rory Lamont, who's an ex-professional rugby player, having represented Scotland, I think it's about 30 times, played in two World Cups, so an amazing kind of club rugby career as well. So someone who is really at the kind of pinnacle, at the elite level in international rugby. At the same time, that came at a price. There's heavy collisions, heavy contact, lots of concussions, lots of injuries. So, at the end of Rory's career, he'd had multiple surgeries, had spent a lot of time, medicated with painkillers and so on, and had taken a lot of trauma to the head and to the brain. So we talk a lot about that because that's quite a big kind of topic at the moment. Head injuries, concussions, particularly in sports. And what we're going to do about it. And so Rory's story is really interesting here because what he does is he talks, he was literally kind of on the edge. He'd finished his career, he'd had multiple concussions, multiple surgeries, was really in a kind of quite a bad way physically. So this is an amazing story of transformation and healing that Rory had found, first of all using Iboga and then going on to use ayahuasca and other plant medicines, including Kambo. So it's a really, really interesting story and very, very topical at the moment, given the interest in kind of head injuries and head trauma. And it's a beautiful story of transformation and healing using plant medicines. It's split over three parts. The first part we talk about Rory's story and his kind of journey from kind of elite level professional sportsman, through the kind of the valley of despair, if you like, and out the other side. Second part we go on to talk a bit more about that. We talk about concussions specifically. We talk about the kind of status of plant medicines, their legality, and so on. And then finally, third part, we talk about Rory's current sort of projects, what he's working on right now, experiences with Kambo, just kind of wrap it up. But it's an amazing and beautiful story of healing and transformation. I know you're going to love it. Right, we're off. So hi Rory. Really big thanks for joining us today. As we've just discussed, one of the kind of strongest parts of the Thank You Plant Medicine movement is the individual story. It's the kind of journey of kind of transformation. So what I'm really interested sort of in the first instance is to chat about your story, how you got into working with plant medicines.
I'm an ex-professional rugby player and retired in 2013 and had a sort of 9-year professional rugby career where I represented Scotland and a few other teams, Glasgow Warriors, Sale Sharks, Toulon Rugby out in France, and I had a really interesting career, which was incredibly turbulent with a lot of injuries and a lot of head injuries, and was dealing with sort of on and off depression throughout my career. Yeah, back in 2013, after a really difficult career with a lot of injuries, a lot of head injuries, a lot of concussions. During my professional career, I was knocked out, like unconscious 10 times, and had hundreds more concussions on top of that. So come 2013, when I retired, my health collapsed, and I think the combination of the surgeries, all the pharmaceutical drugs, huge amounts of pharmaceutical drugs, painkillers and anti-inflammatories, and that lifestyle had taken its toll and left me in a bit of a mess when I retired. My rugby career was a bittersweet experience.
Interesting in the last few years, people like Ricky Hatton and Frank Bruno and boxers, people who we kind of associate with having the kind of being the bravest and the noblest of people, have been really, really suffering from mental health perspective. And then obviously the tragic case of Gary Speed, that I remember, and I guess there's going to be countless more. These are the ones that just kind of just sort of come to mind, that these, elite athletes, going through the kind of the reaching the pinnacle, every boy's dream, every girl's dream to represent their country, to operate at the highest level. And yet the pressure and the kind of stuff that goes on in the background is stuff that we kind of rarely see and sort of rarely talk about. So how does that then sort of become an interest in plant medicine?
I'd been interested in plant medicines from I had my first psilocybin mushroom experience in 2008 when I was still playing, and it was a really powerful experience where I felt deep emotional healing, and I felt there was a lasting effect, lasting antidepressant effect, an uplift in my spirit, and my perspective in life has been improved, and so from that point onwards, I became interested in what Mother Nature had to offer in terms of our ability to heal and raise our consciousness and bring us into an ability to enjoy life more. So I was still playing rugby, and but I was doing a bit of reading and was paying attention to all the research that was coming out. But this was I kept it very quiet to myself, predominantly, and so yeah, when I actually retired and my health had absolutely imploded, it was a real shock to the system. I went from being this prime athlete, very identified in my body and my athletic prowess. My ego was very much attached to that identity, and to lose my rugby career, my rugby family, and all that, the rugby life, and also to lose my body's function, to lose my strength, to lose my health, all at the same time it was really a dark night of the soul for me, where it felt like my entire world was completely imploding. And I had a bit, I was kind of stuck I'd retired with a broken leg, a career-ending injury, and had surgeries to correct it before I retired, but it didn't heal. And then after I retired, I had more surgeries to correct it, which also didn't work. Got an infection in the ankle and went on antibiotics. And immediately after the antibiotics, that's when my health collapsed. My digestive system stopped working, and I couldn't eat, couldn't walk anywhere because the ankle hadn't healed. Stuck on the sofa. Lost all medical support. The Scottish Rugby Union had cut all my medical support, so I was unable to get to see the surgeon privately, so I was on long waiting time. So I was stuck at home, unable to eat, unable to walk, and I basically had a lot of time to analyze my life and see how I'd got to myself into that position. And I quickly got to I understood that my health problems were related to the lifestyle of my rugby life, of lots of surgeries, lots of pharmaceutical drugs, lots of concussions, and that my body the antibiotics were like the straw that broke the camel's back. Mm-hmm. So I knew that conventional Western medicine probably didn't have the remedy for my situation, given that it was the pharmaceutical drugs and Western medicine that contributed to my health decline. And so I knew I'd have to look outside of what the doctors and GPs were offering. And so, yeah, it was so for a good year, I was pretty much bound to my sofa in a dark depression, reviewing things, but really locked into sadness and for the life I'd lost, and like from being at the pinnacle of my sport to not being able to feed myself and walk, and it was a fall from grace. But as time's gone on to reveal, it was the necessary medicine for my true healing. So yeah, it was in 2014, over a year after sitting on the sofa, that I came across a video by Aubrey Marcus. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast talking about the African plant medicine Iboga. This knowing like flooded my body that I just knew there was an intuitive feel in my heart. And within 2 days, I'd booked a flight to Costa Rica. I booked the flight and then flew out maybe a week later to go and drink. Well, sorry, to take Iboga, not drink. Take Iboga with a Bwiti shaman in Costa Rica. So that was, I guess, the true beginning of my healing journey working with plant medicines.
It's amazing you mentioned Aubrey Marcus. I've been on a retreat in Peru with Aubrey Marcus, with Don Howard Lawler, one of his kind of great influences. I've seen enough of his stuff now. Really interesting experience. It was one of the last Wachuma Masadas that I think Howard had actually ever done, because he was in very ill health at the time. So Aubrey had taken him and his team down to the jungle, kind of en masse. There's about maybe 10 to 15 of them, and they kind of brought that whole on it kind of vibe to Spirit Quest at the time. So there was lots of workouts being done, lots of very, very fit and healthy looking people walking around, with a really unique kind of spiritual relationship that that Howard and Aubrey had together. So it was an extraordinary time. One of my most into a bit of my own story. One of the most profound experiences I ever had on any plant medicines was there, because I found that energy quite difficult to deal with in the experience, because I'd gone there to do my own healing, my own deep introspection, and it felt like a bit like Love Island had kind of come to Spirit Quest, and I was just like, why am I here? I hate them, it's too much. It's like, I didn't come for this, this is, what about me, So I was just riddled with kind of like judgment and stuff. And then I think it was on the third Wachuma ceremony, I had to kind of, take extra, because I was so kind of maybe so miserable and blocked or whatever it was. I remember saying to Howard, I think I need more. He said, why? I said, I don't know. He said, you must be really blocked inside. I said, well, maybe I am. So, but just give me the thing that's going to unblock it. So anyway, I did extra, and we were doing these sort of excursions up the river. So beautiful excursions we take upriver and go into the jungle and commune with nature and whatnot. And they were all having a great time, and I was having a shit time. And I was like, this is not what I paid for. I did the ceremony, had the drink, getting on the boat, and I was sitting kind of really bummed out, going, nothing screams higher consciousness like a lung full of engine fumes, and sitting in the back of these boats that go whooping in. And I just had this like overwhelming feeling of acceptance. And something in my mind's eye, this kind of kindly old kind of God figure just appeared, welcome, brother, you've been lost to us. And I just like burst into tears, and I was just overwhelmed with this sense of just like pure acceptance and just shown what it was, like the juxtaposition of toxic hatred, judgment, fear, feeling inadequate in many ways, because look at these people, they're all perfect, you know what I mean? So my own feelings of inadequacy and whatever, and then just shown this like absolute acceptance. This is what it looks like. This is what this thing that we kind of, this ideal that we have in our minds, but to actually feel it and live the experience in real time on a boat, I just burst into, and I was like, wow, these medicines have just work in the most extraordinary ways. Sorry, that was just a bit of a digression. really interested in the Iboga thing because as I mentioned before, I'm part African, so I have a kind of West African connection, sort of, you know, genetically. So I'm really interested in that, particularly in the kind of the potential to go and visit the ancestors. I haven't done it yet, but you know, I'll maybe come back to it. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But in terms of the way the mushroom thing worked out, so for a lot of these discussions, I'm really interested in sort of reaching out to people who might have no idea about what to do, about how to approach a ceremony, about how to approach even kind of looking at these things. And then because obviously they're illegal, we're obviously at pains to stress, you know, we never encourage people to kind of, you know, to break the law. And all. But for someone who say, you know, knee-jerk, magic mushrooms, oh, it's just kind of hippies in a field, you know, getting off their face. How did the mushroom experience itself work for you? I mean, how on a practical level, I mean, was there any dieting involved? Was there any specific preparation? Or did you just eat them and sort of sit on your own and feel better? Or how did it work?
Yeah, well, I mean, back in 2008, I had no blueprint to follow for how to ceremony with the mushrooms, and you know, I didn't do them in a ceremonial manner. The very first time I took them, I was just on my own in my flat down in Bowden in Cheshire, and I just took I can't remember what the dosage was. It was just a moderate dosage, but had, you know, I just sat there on my own with the mushrooms and let them, you know, work through me and change. You know, I had the change in perception and change in my conscious awareness, and just I had an incredibly powerful feeling of connection to life, to the world, to the plants. You know, the plants almost seemed, I could feel a consciousness within the plants, and I could just feel, I don't know, it was just this most incredible feeling of connection to life here, that, you know, I'd been missing, that I'd never felt before. And you know, it was really, really beautiful, really soothing to my soul. And yeah, you know, it just blew my mind that these, it blew my mind the legal status of such an incredibly beautiful medicine. And you know, I kind of, I came out of that just, yeah, my mind blown. Just, I couldn't believe that this medicine was being denied to people, that this experience was being denied to people on such a, you know, to the point, you know, where a thing of nature has been made illegal. So, and what I noticed was, what the profound change was, that the effects lasted well beyond the, you know, the few hours that I could feel the mushrooms in my consciousness. You know, for weeks after, there was an uplift in my spirit, a more positive attitude, and, you know, a more, like, a greater feeling of peace. Just, I guess, living a little bit more in my heart, and feeling more compassion to others, less judgment of myself. So, I mean, that's just a few of the, you know, the experiences I had, and that, you know, for me, I was quite fortunate in the fact that the way I did it the very first time was actually almost quite ceremonial by default. I was just on my own. You know, there was no distractions. It was in a safe place. The set and setting were all right, which is so important with working with these medicines. But, you know, it's so important that people understand how to work with them, because when we, you know, take these powerful medicines and take them without any reverence, any understanding of their power, and maybe take them in the wrong place, wrong time, with the wrong people, wrong mindset, then obviously there's, people can have maybe a bit more of a difficult time. And so maybe that's why they've been illegal, because people they haven't had the understanding of how to work with these, like the indigenous cultures do.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant point. I mean, just taking, giving a 16-year-old some very powerful, plant medicine and saying, off you go to a party, or, driving a car or something like that. I mean, it's a recipe for absolute disaster. So you're absolutely right. The safe and responsible use with the proper reverence. And I think that's a brilliant word, reverence, because as you know from your experiences, and as I know from mine, that the gifts are just so mind-blowingly beautiful, and at times very difficult as well. But they should be approached with a real reverence and respect. So the mushrooms was that, you did it sort of almost by default ceremonially. So then you go to Costa Rica.
It was Iboga House. They don't exist anymore. But it was Iboga House that Aubrey Marcus had gone to. So since, it's like, in my mind, he was a person of merit. So I thought, right, if it's good enough for him, it'll be good enough for me.
Right.
So yeah, I think it was November 2014. Flew out there for 10 days and had 3 ceremonies. And it was a big step going out there, because it wasn't easy. My health was incredibly in bad shape, and I was struggling to walk, and but I'd been dealing with pretty intense suicidal ideation for a good year, and just nothing was really going to stop me getting out to this medicine that I felt like I'd been desperately hoping. I'd been praying actually for maybe the first time in maybe first time since I was a child, actually praying to the universe for some kind of intervention to help with my healing. So when I heard Aubrey Marcus speak about Iboga, there was just this intuitive knowing this is the thing that you've been looking for. So yeah, I got out there, and I had 3 ceremonies over 10 days, and they were incredibly challenging. The first ceremony I had, and they've got you lying down on the mattress, and some people have got the blindfolds on. It's at night, and you've had you start the ceremony around the fire, and you've got the shaman at the time was just talking through with people, and people sharing a little bit about the stories, and then once we're given the medicine, and we lie down after we're given the medicine, and we're left to sort of connect with Iboga. And yeah, the first experience was it was one of frustration. I'd heard so many powerful stories about Iboga before I arrived, that I was expecting big things, and that first ceremony was really, I guess it felt like maybe a bit of a decompression, defragmentation of my psyche was going on, where there was just lots of random images coming into my vision, but it didn't feel like any coherent message. And so I was getting really frustrated. I was looking around, and people seemed to have these incredible experiences, people, having, conversations with the soul of their dead father, and, all sorts of deep healing going on, and nothing's happening for me apart from I'm getting a slideshow of like random images, people that I don't recall ever seeing before coming up. And so it's a long ceremony. It's in your system for a good few hours. You start in the evening, and kind of get up to your room maybe in the early hours of the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, and the medicine's still going. So yeah, I was just felt a lot of frustration. But then the next day, it was just like freedom, that freedom from my pain, freedom from my suffering, freedom from my depression. The dark cloud had been lifted, and I just felt incredible. One of the best feelings I'd ever experienced. Just clarity, just deep peace. So although the ceremony was frustrating, the after effects were very clear, and I felt blessed to have been able to connect with this medicine. And then so a couple of days later, we sort of, after a couple of days of integration, we have a second ceremony, and this ceremony was one of the most challenging experiences of my life. Again, the same process, same ritual, sharing stories around the fire, listening to the shaman, share his wisdom. And I'd been given the medicine, and we're still sat around the fire. So this is just before we go to lie down. As soon as the medicine started kicking in, I started getting deep insights about my life, and it wasn't very pretty. I was beginning to get shown all the ways that I'd been harming myself, all the damage I'd done to myself. Iboga pretty much made me remember every single pill, pharmaceutical drug I'd ever taken. It made me remember all the injuries, it showed me all the alcohol, all the everything that had been destructive to my body. It gave me an awareness of it. The memory was there of every single experience, and it was pretty horrifying. It was terrifying, actually. Because I could see everything that I'd done to myself. I believe there's no way that you can recover from this damage. Just the amount of drugs that had been put into my system, and what they'd done to my health. I slipped into a deep fear that this I couldn't recover from this. And also, it showed me how my own self-destructive behaviors, how I've been led by this unconscious death urge, this unconscious death wish. Just the way I played the game of rugby was almost a game of self-sabotage. I was always commended for my bravery, the way I played the game, but actually it was pretty reckless to my well-being. And that unconscious drive for self-destruction, I believe, was really behind a lot of my concussions. Just the way I played, the sacrificing the body. And so, yes, getting all these insights, and it was incredibly painful to see the way that I'd been destroying myself, and just the fear of believing that you can't recover from this kind of damage. I was like, how am I going to live the rest of my life when this condition I'm in is I'm going to have to walk the rest of my days on earth in this compromised state. But after being stuck in that space for quite a few hours, and I kind of slipped into a really, really challenging sort of dimension, into a dimension beyond this one, where it was pretty heavy energy, and I think it was just parts of my psyche that was being shown to me. But Iboga came in and showed me all the experiences from my early childhood that had caused me deep pain, that caused me deep trauma, how these painful experiences had led me into self-destructive behaviors, and that, there was no blame. I wasn't to blame myself for the way I'd lived my life and the way I'd hurt myself and the damage I'd caused myself, because really it was just a chain reaction from my behaviors were all related to experiences that I had, pain I'd experienced during childhood that had affected the way I operated in the world, and it caused my depression. And of course, when you're depressed, you either want to leave the world, or you look to try alleviate your suffering through other modalities, whether it's through alcohol, or whether people are going through recreational drugs or any kind of addictions. It's these painful experiences drive us into these behaviors that don't really serve us. And so it gave me a deep sense of compassion. So I forgave myself completely in that moment for all the destructive behaviors, all the bad decisions that I had made. And so, with that came a sense of freedom. And what Iboga most importantly showed me was that I am a spiritual being, that the material identity, the egoic identity, is not truly who I am, that there's a soul, a spiritual dimension, an awareness beyond the physical. And so with this new understanding, this new awareness, my whole mode of operation changed, and the suicidal ideation, the desire to end my life was finished. That this new awareness was, gave me the compassion for myself, and basically I really feel like connecting with Iboga was like a death and a rebirth, a complete transformation of the story of who I was before to a completely new story, a story where you become empowered, and you feel that there's a sense of purpose to this life, and that all the challenges are opportunities for growth. And it's, Iboga really was the point of change, the point of transformation. With that new understanding, with that new blueprint for how to live life, I could move forward and start to enjoy my life a lot more, and that's what has happened.
Wow, it's amazing. I mean, there's so much in there. I think that the thing that really jumps out for me, and I'm always conscious when I'm having conversations like this, are thinking about the naysayers and the doomsters and the gloomsters who are just like, and it's particularly where I grew up in Scotland. I can hear the kind of the old biddies and the old guys going, what's all that about? Load of rubbish, But it really doesn't matter, because it's the outcome, isn't it? It's like, it's how you feel afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And you whether you get that insight into the spiritual nature of things, that's everyone's in their own journey, and that doesn't come to everyone. But what is undeniable is the transformation of your mind and your perspective. There's physiological changes that happen, whether you like it or not. And whether, say, physiological, I mean, there's a cleansing, you know, and there's a benefit to the brain, and there's, you know, there's, you don't have to be spiritual nature to receive a benefit from these medicines. In fact, lots of people aren't, but some people do have, I guess, a spiritual awakening with these medicines. Others just receive a sense of relief from the mind, from the depression, and feel an uplift in the outlook on things, become more optimistic. So yeah, absolutely. And I know that that's always, you know, people will often use the spiritual aspect of it. You know, it's just hippies, you know, and they'll try to diminish the experience, but they're really denying themselves like a really amazing opportunity to experience an opportunity of enriching their life and enriching their perspective.
Hey everyone, amazing story, right? So, you know, join us for, you know, part 2 and part 3, where we're going to talk about, you know, kind of further, you know, into Rory's story. We talk about experiences with Kambo, about, you know, deeper experiences with ayahuasca. You know, but please, follow, like, you know, do all the things we need to do on social media to really kind of, you know, drive this forward, and get these medicines kind of, you know, rescheduled, decriminalized, and available for more people to kind of share in their amazing benefits. Thank you.